So I think you guys all know about my thoughts on collabs already and what the general sentiment is as well. But what really triggered me this time was when I saw this. It wasn't even Vanguard as well. It was Magic the Gathering, and I mean I saw these on Twitter. I'm just going, what is this? Okay, what is this? This is from The Office. This is actually a real card, by the way. Apparently, I thought it was just like some badly done fan card, but this is from The Office. I didn't watch The Office. Okay, so I'm already not even its target market. But this is just so not like Magic the Gathering. I don't know. Maybe I'm just too old. Maybe like an oldie. I did play Magic the Gathering before, like a long time ago. But yeah, what is this? What is this? And there was a big backlash about collabs for Magic the Gathering recently as well. I think a lot of people were just going, "Oh, this is not Magic the Gathering anymore," and that's because they revealed the schedule, right? The Magic the Gathering like lineup for, I guess, 2026. And you look at this, and it's just collab central. So Lorwyn is a real series. I don't know what Reality Fracture is, but then everything. I mean, I think Strixhaven is also one. I'm not 200% sure on the modern Magic the Gathering terms. But you see this. Everything else is not Magic the Gathering. And one of the big changes that Magic the Gathering had last year, or was it this year? I think it was last year. Was that they announced that all of the collab sets are now standard legal. So that means they can be played in the tournaments. Before, I think a lot of these you couldn't, as in the ones that were basically not part of the main sets. Like they have this split just like Vanguard, where you have some which are just alternate arts. I think if you look carefully, this is like an alternate art, for example. Swords to Plowshares, that used to be another card, but now it's got this art. But then you also have like it's just the full-on like the Lord of the Rings sets, Final Fantasy sets, and those used to not be able to be put into your main deck or be allowed to be played at main events kind of things. They're more like for just playing a bunch of friends or like Commander, I guess. I think they were legal for that, but then now they are. So that created a whole issue where people going, well, it's not really Magic. It's not even the same IP kind of thing. And that's kind of where Magic has been going now, and this is where it's kind of ending up. One thing is, there's a reason why this is the case, right? Because collabs just make a lot of money. That's just how it is. And I feel like for the Magic the Gathering ones, very deserved. I looked at something like the Final Fantasy collab. There's a lot of effort that has been put into it. And that's a good thing. But then you also have it when things go too far, I feel like. And this is kind of, we're reaching the end where things have been going too far. Especially like a lot of these collabs, I don't even think they're that relevant anymore. So Marvel superhero, I think Marvel was like cool like 6 years ago. I don't know. It's not even that cool anymore. I think the most recent success Marvel has had was with Rivals, right? And that's because everyone had some really, really nice looking assets. Let's put it like that. Yeah. But then things like The Hobbit, does anyone really care about The Hobbit? Like The Hobbit wasn't even as significant as Lord of the Rings in a way, right? Lord of the Rings first release onto the big screen that just made it look cool, and The Hobbit just came later. And you have things like, oh, it's now a 3 set, like a 3 movie versus the 1 and things like that. So I feel like it just didn't have that impact that Lord of the Rings is. And then you also have Star Trek, which would have been nice maybe like 10 years ago, again, when they did the reboot, but now, does anyone care about Star Trek? I don't know. I feel like, I mean, I'm not the biggest nerd out. Maybe I am, but clearly these collabs aren't aimed at me. So it's I'm not really its target market. And there's also other things as well. Like when you think about what you do in a collab is that you're trying to get an audience that either isn't there to get played into game, or you're trying to get like the people who really like that IP to pay money for it. It's all about money, right? If it doesn't make money, they're not going to do it. So then we have the Spider-Man collab, which came out I think recently, and it's just you have a similar idea where I think it's a whole set for Spider-Man, or at least like a mini set, and you get cards for it. But the funny thing is that for Arena, their online client, they couldn't get the rights for Spider-Man, so they had to print all the cards with the same effect. But they had to change the art and some of the names. So here you have on the right is the Spider-Man version, and on the left is the Arena version. And people have been seeing things like the Arena version art looks way cooler. And I mean, can make sense. If you're a big fan of the comics, I'd be like, oh yeah, it's, Spider-Man, hell yeah. Look at this, right? This is Spider-Man. But then, this Villainous Wrath art here also looks pretty good. It looks pretty crazy slick. And then you have to think about, what do they do with Spider-Man? Yeah, well, what do they replace Spider-Man with? Because if you can't use Spider-Man, that's like the whole set. The set's Spider-Man, right? So you replace it with this guy who's like the spider human hero. He actually doesn't look that bad either. He looks pretty cool. But yeah, I don't know. It just feels so weird that like they spent so much money on a collab, and then they couldn't put it on their online client, which is probably one of the more visible places that you'll play the game nowadays. So I don't know. That was just funny to me. But I think when you go back to this, we're getting this. I think for a lot of these games where they're spamming this idea of a collab because it makes so money, definitely reaching that level where it's just too much. It's time to stop. It's time to focus back on your IP, right? And I mean, clearly not, because it just prints money, and everything's just going to be the Weiss of everything now, and then Weiss is going to suffer because they wouldn't have any IPs left. But I think we can kind of break down what is really pissing us off, or what really annoys people when it comes to collabs. And I think the main one is just like low effort collabs. Just, in other words, slop, right? When they just keep on printing out slop, people get mad. And we kind of break down collabs to many different things. There's like the alternate art collabs where, they just print certain cards with the IP that they're interested in and call it a day. And I think those are actually fine. Like, if we look at something like this, for example, okay, there's a Bang Dream collab in Vanguard, but those are just the crit triggers and the heal triggers. That's pretty cool. I'm happy to just like put them in. They have like very little impact on the game, and that's that. Even like the Hololive collab, and now conflicts of interest. Okay, I'm a fan of Hololive, but having the ride line where they just kind of replaced the art for one of the lyrical decks for Michu, right, with just some Hololive characters, I think that was fine too, right? Very little impact. It's only when they start making these big plays that I guess the collabs become an issue. But I feel like as long as you put enough effort into it, it's good, right? So like I'm talking about things like, yeah, the Final Fantasy collab or Lord of the Rings collab in like Magic the Gathering. You can feel like there's a lot of effort been put in. Like they spent like a year talking about it. There's a bunch of like, original art that's in there. They've translated the cards very well, and that's like the equivalent of our like Token Rambu and Buddy Fight collabs. Now I'm gonna go out on my say I'm not a huge fan of Buddy Fight. I wasn't part of the Buddy Fight scene then, but by releasing a whole set about it and just putting effort into making the cards kind of genuine, I think that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing. It's only when I feel like when they just, for Bushiroad at least, when they just attach the collabs to a set. So we have for example, the most recent one is going to be Freerun. I actually think the Freerun one looks okay, and it's disappointing that Freerun is just kind of like a tack on, and they announced it so late. This is where the collabs are getting to the slot levels. Every single couple of sets, there's one of these collabs. And there's no way to escape them, there's no way to escape these collabs because they're part of your tournament scene, your local scene. People are definitely going to play them. Sometimes the collabs are just tuned better and easier to get into because they're cheaper, and the effects are more powerful, the effects are more straightforward kind of thing. You don't have to buy like 5 different sets just to get any sort of support. And I feel like that's a bad thing. And that's, if we look at kind of the next set, I think where this is coming out in, I think set 11, I think the draw is not actually the set itself, but the Freerun set. And that's kind of sad. Like, in terms of what is getting released in the set, we're getting some new Virina cards, we're getting some Seraph support, but there's no real highlight to that set except for this. And bear in mind, they announced this like last week. So, yeah, just in terms of how they're executing this is a problem. I feel like when you think about Freerun, right, it's a big anime. It's one of the biggest animes, or one of the best animes in terms of like when you refer to like my anime list, for example. But in terms of its impact and people liking it, it's definitely quite up there. And just kind of being regulated, so like kind of like to tack on, set just feels kind of wrong. It definitely feels like you could add a whole set to it, but obviously it probably costs a lot more money, so that's why they don't do it. But it just feels like it's not it's not being respected enough. When you're collabing with something, one, you don't want to have too many collabs out there, otherwise it kind of loses its luster, which is what's been happening, I guess, in MTG, and then to an extent, Vanguard too. But you also want to respect the IP, and you want to give it your all. I feel like a lot of the collab stuff has been very generally kind of creative in certain parts, but also very straightforward and like overpowered in some things. Like they just slap 5k to everything, so everything gets like massive powers. Your Vanguard is like 18k base, you get triple drive, things like that. So I don't know, I feel like a lot of the tack on ones don't work. Like imagine, because they also detract from the IP itself. When you're playing Vanguard, sometimes you're not playing Vanguard, you're playing against Love and Berry. And that was because they kind of slapped it on at the end of like set 5 in Japan, and then called it a day. And then in English, we don't even get some of these collabs. I don't even know if we're going to get this free rank collab. This free rank collab looks really, really good, and we're not going to get it. So I don't know. That's kind of it. That's kind of like my thoughts on that, right? For me, I don't really have a problem with things like Buddy Fight, even though I'm not a huge fan of Buddy Fight. You can kind of see they devoted like a whole set to it. They're believing it works. They're having a tournament series for it, which I don't know. That one's a bit like, I feel like they could have put a bit more effort into that. But, they've put some work into this. Same with, like, the Token Rumble collab. I don't have an issue with Token Rumble. This was, like, our OG collab. And we're still getting support for it, which is kind of cool. Like, you kind of respect that. There's, like, kind of a legacy there. The only problem with the Token Rumble collab is it comes out, like, a year later. So it's, like, absolutely irrelevant when it comes out. So that needs to change. I feel like that definitely needs to change. But overall, I feel like when you put an effort into a collab and you can kind of show it, then people are going to respect it. And then for the things that, kind of, like, tack on for fun, the alternate arts, I think those are fine too, because people will see a card and go, oh, that's like a one-off, or it doesn't really affect the game that much. I'm happy to play with it. But when you kind of have some impactful collabs that I feel like don't feel like they've been respected, or they don't get the respect they deserve, or it feels like it's just been put there because they needed a print product, I think that's wrong. And we're going to head to a situation where the collabs themselves will be maybe doing long-term harm to the IP at least. Short-term, I feel like quick money, money print and go easy, blah, 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 right? That's always nice to see. Money number goes up, that's great. But I think in the long term, I think we're going to be having issues. And it's going to be like a competition, like a collab war competition, right? Oh no, that game gets like these 6 collabs. We get like the petrol station collab kind of thing, and it's gonna be just really, really weird. At some point, you're gonna run out of collabs as well. So what do you do then? Do you finally start making good product? I don't know. Maybe step back and make good product now. So I don't know. I feel like stop with the collabs. Print less collabs at least. Make it so the idea of a collab is back where it should be, where it's gonna be that, oh, that's really cool, it's rare, but it happens. I like the Shadowverse collabs in that things like the swimsuit collabs, well, they're not really a collab, it's like, the swimsuit sets was like alternate. I like alternate arts. Alternate arts are like really cool when done correctly, but I guess they don't print as much money as collabs. And I guess the biggest problem with collabs is that you'll have people who hate collabs, and then when they finally get an IP that they like, they're like, oh, I'm going all in on this collab. I'm going to buy like 3 cases or something for it. And then, the money goes up for the company, and they go, yeah, it works. We're going to keep on doing that. Everyone cracks at some point. So, I don't know. Personally, I've actually, the only collabs I've been getting has been the Japan ones. Like, I think the last one I got was Berry. But that's out of necessity, because Berry was a good deck when I went to Japan at the time. And it was also the easiest deck to get, because it didn't have a promo that cost 5,000 yen for each copy. So, yeah, that's how it is. But personally, I would prefer if they kind of tone it down. I think tone it down. I think we're having too much. I feel like they could have made the free ring collab way better than it was. Right now, I think the cards are still okay. I know people have been looking at them and go, why are these cards so creative compared to my other decks? But if you're a Eugene stan, I feel sorry for you, man. That's just how it is. Let me know what you guys think in the console. I'm pretty sure a lot of people already are disliking collabs, but It's worse for us. It's worse for us because we don't get all the collabs. You know, like in English, we just get way less. It's kind of also refreshing when you play other games, like, I don't know, Pokemon hardly collabs. Actually, no, they do. They collab with, like, the art galleries and stuff. And I feel like that's tasteful. It's like kind of the alternate art collab, right? But we're never going to see, you know, next Pokemon set is the One Piece set, you know, or like this is the next set's the Gundam set kind of. You're never going to see that. It's only available for, I guess, games where the IP is like kind of original, and then, you know, you get, oh, original IP with that thing. So I don't know. It's refreshing when you play a game with no collabs. Let's put it that way. But let me know what you guys think. I'll see you all next time. All right, just a quick rant from me. Yeah. Bye.